Hello. Well, what a mess I've just had. I was going to go live about half an hour ago and I had no sound at all. There's just been a big Windows update, so all the drivers were screwed on the sound card, so I've just had to go through a whole reinstall of the whole thing. But it's working now. So if you can let me know if you've got any sound problems. It should be coming through fine. If not, then let me know. Brian's just saying stream is not feeding to Facebook. It should be. I can see it there. I'm looking at it on one of the screens. Live chat down there. YouTube, yep, that one's working. No, it's feeding. Cool. Great. Hiya, Nathan. So, yeah, this all looks pretty good. So, in a minute, I'm just going to be going through a load of walking bass stuff. So I'm going to show you how to create a walking bass line over, well, I'll probably do it over Autumn Leaves, seeing as that's the most popular one to use. But I've just been having a mess around with a little bit of a loop, which I'll let you listen to. It's quite nice. So while everybody arrives, and let me see if I've got it right. Nice little loop there. It's fairly nice. So anyway, there's the loop. I'm just messing around with that for a while, and it sounded quite nice. So I might actually put that into into one of the lessons. It's a fairly simple little. So it's like A add 9, then down to a D add 9. Over those kind of things, so like over that A add 9, you can use a major 7, major scale, and then for the D add 9, it's D Lydian. And one of the things that you can practice over things like that is target notes. So as you're playing something like A major, so outlining the chord tones. And then I've got the major third there for the D. There's the fifth, etc. So just a little bit of a noodle. So let's have a see who's in here. We've got 26 over in Facebook. Let's see how many we've got over on the YouTube bit. Where are we? 60. Oh, that's not too bad. So we've got. Hi, Vanessa. I just saw that you just applied for the study group. Can you play your 5-string? Actually, I can't at the moment. It is back there, but I've just been messing around with it this morning, trying to fix a bit on it. So actually, no, I can't. What kind of bass you got there? There we go. It's the obligatory bass question. Ibanez SR1000 that I bought in about 1992, and it's fitted with Martin Sims Super Quad pickups. So we've got that one out of the way pretty quick. So that's the YouTube ones, and I'll just quickly check on the. Oh, don't need that there. Check on the Facebook ones before I start. Cool. Great. So, just a tiny bit of news before I start doing this walking bass stuff. I'm currently doing the finishing off the it's level 4 of the sight reading course. So any of you out there that are doing the sight reading course, I'm currently in the thick of it. I've got like so many pieces of paper here. It's like all this stuff. Even doing some time change exercises there. Got a lot of 3, 4, 4, 4, 2, 4. And yeah, it's coming along. So I was hoping to get it done before Christmas, but I don't know. It might be a little bit later. But it's a good one. It's a little bit different from the previous one because everything just looks a little bit slicker, and I'm approaching it from a different angle, which you'll see when you start it. But if you've not got the first volume of the sight reading course, then that won't mean anything to you. But yeah, it's looking pretty good. So, walking bass. Now, this microphone's falling apart. I just saw somebody, who was it? Spirit of Toad. Can you explain to us again what you mean by walking and the intervals you are using? So I'm guessing you mean in all, the title that I've given to this about walking. Well, walking bass is commonly used in swing stuff. So that, it can be blues, but it's generally jazz. So we're talking jazz, really. And, we're talking, standard kind of quarter note lines, a dung, 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 dung. You're generally going to be over a swing beat, ding, tink, da ding, tink, da ding. And it's, a very it's the way that you generally play in jazz, really. If you want to learn how to play jazz, you're definitely going to have to learn how to walk, but you will get it in other forms of music. And like I say, a lot of blues stuff, you get walking lines in there. It's generally improvised, so if you sat there playing away, it's like soloing in quarter notes, outlining the chord progressions. So if we're playing over something like Autumn Leaves, which the chords are going to be... Okay, so that kind of chord progression, you have C minor 7, F7, B flat major 7. You got the C minor 7. Then you got the F7, B flat major 7, E flat major 7, A minor 7 flat 5, D7. So that's what we're looking at. And I'm guessing that, most of you know what I'm talking about with that, even if you can't play them very well. And it's one thing that when I very first started out, I found really difficult to do. Walking lines, because it's improvised, I mean, as much as you're not soloing around, it's all in quarter notes, but you've really got to know your scales and your arpeggios and all that kind of stuff. So, and you've got to build up a vocabulary, so that you can do this stuff. And I just found it really, really difficult. It wasn't until I started at music college and was actually put in a jazz band, because I'd never played jazz really up until I did that. And, you get put in bands and that. And I was forced into doing it, because, that's what we were playing. We were playing a lot of jazz standards. And I had no idea. And the tutor that we'd got at the time gave me a little bit of a kind of hack, a way that I could get by with it. But gradually over time, just doing it, I gradually kind of figured my way forward. I knew some scales, I knew some arpeggios a little bit, and I started realizing what I had to do with them to get by. And you kind of, when you're first starting out with this kind of stuff, you will find that you learn a few little licks. There's certain lines that are very, very common that can get you through stuff. You'll always have stuff like that kind of line, because a lot of the chord progressions move up by fourth. You might have D to G or G to C, and that line, you get it all the time, or coming down a scale. It's there's certain things, little things that you, like I say, you put into your vocabulary, like this kind of mental toolbox, and you can use. So I will go through this now. I'm going to use Autumn Leaves. I've got a little track here that I've put in there, and I'll just show you the part. And what I'll do here is I'll give you an idea of how jazz standards can be good practice for all aspects of your playing. Autumn Leaves is a very common one to use, because it's got a few. The chord progression is very good for working around, because you've got like a major 2-5-1 and then you've got a minor 2-5-1 in there, so it covers both of the 2-5-1s. And I'll just show you the part. I've just printed it off, so you can see there. I'll just move the camera part across to the side. So I'll just very quickly go through the progression. Now, what you've got there is, you can see the key signature. Whether you know anything about key signatures or not, the key signature is saying B flat major or G minor. And it's pretty much in both of them. It's pretty much in G minor, but you've got this little B flat major at the beginning. Now, when you look at a jazz standard like this, whatever it is, it's worth analysing the chord progression so that you kind of know the lay of the land before you work through it, because that will influence the kind of scales and arpeggios that you're going to use. Now, with this, I'll very quickly run through it. We've got C minor 7. Let's look at that first 4 bars. We've got C minor 7, F7, B flat major 7, and E flat major 7. C minor 7, F7, B flat major 7, and E flat 7. Now, I'll rather than confusing you and asking you to try and do it, I'll just outline what that is. So we're basically in B flat major for those first 4 bars. So we've got a 2-5-1 in B flat major. So think of B flat major. So number them 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Back to 1. B flat would be 1, C would be 2, D would be 3, etc. So we've got C minor 7, which is chord 2 in B flat major. Then we've got F7, which is chord 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Then we've got B flat major 7, which is obviously chord 1. Then E flat major 7, which is chord 4. So it's a 2, 5, 1, 4. So you can play this little game with these chord progressions, just numbering them. It means that you get a bit of practice looking at keys and looking at scales, a major scale, for instance. Then we get to the second line there. That's A minor 7 flat 5 to D7. So what we've actually done here is moved into G minor. We've actually got a 2, 5, 1 in G minor. So in a minor 2, 5, 1, chord 2 is generally a minor 7 flat 5, or a half diminished chord. So that's A minor 7 flat 5, then D7, which is the chord 5, and then G minor, which we then turn into G7, which is a secondary dominant, which brings us back nicely into the C minor 7. So we've kind of got two keys going on there, both related. We've got the major key, B flat, and then we've got the relative minor, G minor. Okay, you could look at the whole thing as being in G minor, starting on chord 4 and then working through with kind of secondary dominant there, but don't worry about that too much. Don't get too bogged down in the theory of this. Just think 2, 5, 1 and a 4 in B flat, and then a 2, 5, 1 in G minor. Then second 4 bars, bars 5 to 8 are all is just a repeat of it. So we've got C minor 7, F7, B flat major 7, E flat major 7, A flat minor 7 flat 5, D7, and then G minor again. Then, once we get down to the next bar, we've got A minor 7 flat 5, D7, G minor. So it repeats the last 4 bars of it. What happens is it just kind of inverts it. So we've just got the same chord progression, but just, A minor 7 flat 5 first. Same thing working through. And then if you look down onto the second to last stave there, we've got A minor 7 flat 5 again, D7. Then we've got this G minor, F sharp 7, F minor 7, E7. Don't worry about that too much. That's actually pretty much G minor 7, C7, F minor 7, B flat 7, but with some tritone substitutions in there. Now, I know that last sentence will have just sounded like a load of a bit of waffle if you don't know anything about harmony. Don't worry about it. It's just a chromatic rundown from G, F sharp, F, E, which leads us nicely into chord 4 again. E flat mid, we're actually back into G minor, A minor 7, flat 5, D7, and then G minor. Okay, so that's the chord progression. So for any of these kind of jazz standards like this, you really want to have a bit of an idea of the landscape, the harmony in there. Now, what that does when you know what the harmony is that it gives you an idea of what scales you're going to be able to use on something like a walking line. Now, I've got to say, the first port of call with this stuff is to know your chord tones. It's to know what the notes of those chords are, because that is going to be your skeleton of the line, pretty much. The scales, the chord tones are in there. It's just joining up the dots. But really, you need to know the arpeggios of each one of those. If you were to use the arpeggios of each of those chords, you could come up with a pretty good walking line just by playing the arpeggios. So, if I'm down here, let me try and get in shot. So, think of what we've got. We've got C minor 7. Okay, so I'm not going to go through every single one of these arpeggios. I'm just going to give you an idea of what you need to be working on. So I'll play through them, and then you can think, okay, I need to learn that minor 7, or I need to learn that dominant 7. So we've got C minor 7, F7, B flat major 7, E flat major 7, A minor 7 flat 5, D7, and then G minor to G7. Now, just by playing those arpeggios, you can actually hear the outline of the harmony. If I just play through that first 4 bars, if I was to just play through those arpeggios, you you can hear the harmony in there. You can hear that chord progression moving then to the A minor 7 flat 5. You can hear it coming back to there. So that's where the chord tones are your skeleton that you want to use. And, you know, you could come up with a walking line with them. You know, that, it kind of work. You know, it's a little bit angular, and there's a lot of, you know, thirds in there. But, you know, you could get through it. A minor 7 flat 5. Now, I'll show you what I'm doing with this in a second. I'm just outlining the arpeggios to show you that that's why they're worth learning. Okay, so that was just using chord tones. So that's your first port of call, learning the arpeggios. Now then, it's adding scale notes in there so that you can join those up, right? And I'll just let you in on what these scales are, because you can kind of look at it modally, really. So you've got, for the first 4 bars, we've got C minor 7. We'd have a C Dorian scale for that because it's chord 2. So then for F7, we're going to be using Mixolydian. B flat major 7, which is B flat major. Then E flat major 7, we've got E flat Lydian. A minor 7 flat 5, we can use a Locrian. Then for D7, because we're kind of in a we're in secondary dominant mode here in terms of B flat major. Because we've moved into G minor, we've actually got what you can do is play this D Mixolydian, and then we just flatten that 6th. So it's actually a Mixolydian flat 6, and then we're down to the G minor, which you can use a G natural minor if you want. And then for the G7, we're back to we can use a G Mixolydian. So that's some scales that you can use, and they pretty much work over the whole thing, you know, because there's not really any other chords, apart from on that little chromatic rundown, but that moves by so fast that you're not exactly going to be outlining modes. Now, like I said, don't worry too much about all these modes and scales, because if you know the chord tones, really what you can do is just add chromatic notes or whatever. You can put stuff in between them. It doesn't matter so much as long as the chord tones are correct. If the chord tones are right, everything's fine. The other notes, because think about what a chord tone is. We're looking at a root, a third, a fifth, and a 7th. The actual notes in between there are the 2nd, the 4th, and the 6th. And you can pretty much mess around with those, you know, chromatically. And it'll kind of work. But like I say, if you need some scales for it, those are the ones that would work. So that's the scales that you need to work on and the arpeggios. Now, what I'm going to do is start at the absolute basics with working through a progression like this. I'll just play through the... Oh, hold on. Vanessa just said, what scale do you use on the B flat major 7? That's a B flat major. So you just use a B flat major scale. So I'm just going to play through the chord progression, and all I'm going to use to begin with is root notes. Okay, so I'm just going to work through that chord progression, and the reason I'm going to do this is to give you an idea of where you want to be looking for, because you're going to be targeting the actual root notes. Okay, so pick. Oh, Vanessa did it again. Yep, it's a B flat major scale. That section is in B flat major. So I'm going to stay in this area down here, this first position. You want to try being able to stay in one area. If you can do all of this in one area, it means that when you then start moving, you know, you can concentrate on another area and then switch between the two. But you don't want to be locked into, you know, a pattern situation where you're having to move all the time just to, you know, because you're at the mercy of the patterns that you're using. Try to learn all of the patterns that you might want to use, whatever the scale is, whatever the arpeggios, just in one area, so that everything's just under your fingers. And then you address another position separately, and then you can move between the positions, and no matter what happens, you'll be fine. Okay? And that goes for, you know, soloing or whatever as well. Oh, Paul just said, how did you work out which modes go over which chords? That's by knowing the key. That's why I said by working out the actual, by knowing the landscape of it in terms of the harmony, that's how you know which scales to use. So, like I said, those first 4 bars, you should know if you've got any kind of harmony knowledge that that's pretty much in B flat major. It's a 2-5-1 in B flat major. Now, if you know your modes within that key, you'll know that C minor 7, that's chord 2 in B flat major. Chord 2, that's Dorian. That's the second mode. Then, if you move to F7, that's chord 5 in B flat major. What's the 5th mode? Mixolydian. So that's a Mixolydian. B flat major. What's that in B flat major? It's chord 1. So that's B flat major. So then for chord E flat major 7, that's chord 4 in B flat major. So what's the 4th mode? E flat Lydian. But like I said, don't worry too much. I'm not going to get caught up too much in modes for this. Because I'm not going to be thinking too modally. I'm going to show you some little lines and licks that you can use to get by. Because that's the first thing you need to do. You don't want to be going into the first time that you're going to be playing walking bass lines and thinking, oh, I've got to know my modes and I've got to know all these arpeggios and oh no, there's going to be all this stuff to remember. If you can get used to seeing the actual root movement and then working out some lines that will get you by, then you can start elaborating on that with modes and things like that. But really, you just want some lines that'll get you through to begin with, and lines that will work over a few different chords. So here's the track. I'm just going to work through the chord progression once, and all I'm going to do is play the root notes. I've got to try and get myself in this little box next to the sheet music. But I'm just going to find those root notes now. Before I do that, let's just see what we've got. C, okay? So we're going to stay down in this one area. So you think, okay, well, what C should we use? Well, there's a C there, 3rd fret of the A string, or there's this C here at the 5th fret of the G string. So we could use either one. So let's start with that one, the low one. Then F, okay, well, we've got that F there or that F there. Whichever one. You know, let's go for that one. B flat major 7, we've got to find a B flat. There's a B flat. Or I could go for the high B flat. So there's a high and a low version in this position. E flat. Well, there's only one E flat in this position. That's going to be there, 1st fret of the D string. This is where knowing your fingerboard is really essential, and why working through things like this is really good for your knowledge of the neck. I'm guessing most of you are going to be pretty au fait with the notes in this area, but if you're not, this is great practice for it. So then A minor 7 flat 5. Well, we're looking for an A. There's an A. I'm not going to use open strings. I'm not going to use open strings yet. So there's an A, or I could go for that A there. Remember, we're just in this area. Then a D. Okay, well, there's a D there. Like I say, I'm not going to use the open string. I'm just going to use this D here, 5th fret of the A string. Then G. I can go for that 3rd fret on the E string. So I'll just go through the whole chord progression, and we'll see how that sounds. So I'm just going to take it slow to begin with. So there's the C, F, B flat, there's the E flat, A. It's dead simple to begin with. G, maybe the high one, C. Notice how I'm playing quite close to the neck to give it that relaxed kind of sound. And I'm playing pretty light as well. I don't want to be playing too clanky, like, it just doesn't work with the style. There's the G. I've gone for the high A there. Either one, you can go for the high or the low, it doesn't matter. C. And the reason for this is because when we then make a walking line, we're going to be wanting to target one of the notes. So again, we're wanting to get a feel for the landscape. With this bit, we're just taking those notes one at a time. 2 chords per bar there. Okay? So, that's the first step. You need to know where the root notes are. If you can't do that, then you've got no chance, like working through any of the rest of it. So that's the first thing. Just know where the notes are, both high and low, in one position. So, if you can't do that, that's good practice. You know, get a backing track like this. What I'll do is I'll actually put the backing track up on Talkingbass somewhere, and then you can actually download it. And I'll put the sheet music up there as well. So just working through, just on those root notes. You know, because everybody's like, oh, I want to learn how to play walking bass. But this is how you start. Just finding where those, where the lay of the land is. Now, next step, after you've practiced that a few times and you can, you know, just improvise which one, you know, low or high, that's all you've got to think. You know, you might go high C, that F, maybe that B flat, maybe that E flat, that A, that D, maybe that high G, you know, change it up every time. Just work round and round it. Maybe high, maybe low. Get used to picking them out. Then you want to go for root and fifth. Now, think about what a fifth pattern is, okay? So we've got C. If I was on C there, it's going to be G. You just need to get to know that pattern. So C to G. C, third fret of the A string. G, fifth fret of the D string. Okay, that's your fifth pattern. Good old power chord. Okay, so there's your root fifth. I have to turn off the reverb. Hold on. How do we get to home? Right, that's it. Suddenly realised I've got delay on. So yeah, so we've got C up to G, so we can have that as a fifth pattern. You know, no matter where we go. So if I'm on an F, we can have that. B flat, there's a, you know, we just move that pattern around. Just get used to that fifth pattern, okay? Or we can go down to the fifth. So think about that G, C up to G. If we take that G and put it down here, okay, there's the other fifth, okay? I mean, I can't stress how important that is. You know, just knowing your root fifth patterns, you know, just knowing those two patterns, okay? A fifth up, a fifth down, okay? So, because we've got both of those fifths at our disposal, it means that no matter where we are in this position with the root notes, we've got a fifth that we can use. We're not always having to use the high fifth and move around. We can actually pick a fifth below. So, if I was to play... Now, before I carry on, when we play root fifth through this, which is going to be a 2 feel, so I'm going to be playing on 1 and 3, so it's going to be 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, okay? When we do this, I'm going to be looking at the chords, C minor 7, let's say, and then I'm going to pick a fifth. Do I go up or down? That's all I've got to think of. That's the decision. Do I go up or down? Dead simple. So root, I've gone up, okay? Now, the next one, and you need to be thinking about this before you get to the bar. You can't be waiting till you've got to the bar and thinking, oh, there's an F. You've got to kind of plan it out in advance during the bar, right? So C, I've gone up, and I can see that the next chord is F. So I'm looking for an F. Now, do I go down to this F? Well, if I do that, it's a very big jump. Whereas we've got the F here. And this is where I was saying it's worth, going round and round the chord progression, just picking out the root notes. Get used to where they are, the high one and the low one. So when you play up, and you're up on maybe the D and the G string, you've got a set of root notes to pick from. So C, then the high F. That's much, much better in terms of voice leading. So I'm up, and then to the F. Now, I could play up with the fifth, but we're going to keep going up, and, I'm wanting to keep it a little bit low. So if I did that, yeah, I could move to that B flat. But what I'll do this time is actually play the fifth below. So I've got C, up a fifth, then F, and I'll go down to the fifth below. So it's just the same fret, just below. F, C, and now, where's the nearest B flat? Because we're looking at the B flat, the next chord. It's there. So the bass line is almost writing itself. We just started off by thinking, okay, well, we'll start on the C, go up to the G, the F, the next F, that writes itself, it's right there. And then I think, okay, well, I'm going to go down to the C. Where's the B flat? Oh, it's right there. And then we think, well, do I go up? Well, I've looked ahead. I've seen that the E flat major 7, and I'm thinking, well, there's only one E flat in this area. It's up there. So let's go up with the fifth. Then we've got the E flat. Then I'll come down. What's the nearest A? Okay, it's there. See, it's writing itself. And then up. There's the D, down, G, fifth. And we've got 2 bars then, so what I'll do, I could play root, fifth, but what I'll do is I'll play root, fifth, and I'll play the root that's higher, the octave there. So root, fifth, fifth, and then we're back to C. So, you know, it kind of, the line almost wrote itself. It's almost like you got a little algorithm, and it's just, you know, or it's procedurally generated, you know. It's like you've set off and thought, okay, well, I'm just going to find the nearest ones. Every now and then you've got to think, do I go up or down? But, you know, it's easy to make the decisions when you're seeing what the next chord should be. So, now I'll just play through the chord progression, just using root and fifth. Nice long held notes. A. I'll go down. G. Fifth. Octave. Fifth. C. I'll go down this time, which leads to that F. B flat. A. This time I'll go up. Dead simple. It's just laid back, always looking ahead. Cheated then, who's the third? On those, just play the root notes, because we're just playing half notes. Okay. So, we've moved on from root notes to those fifths. Now, I know that this isn't moving into ba-dum-dum-dum-dum-dum-dum, but it's a nice progression. It's a nice progressive way of working just from root notes, which is, you know, are all written there, to adding another note, right? So there we go. That's the fifths. Now, another thing that you can do just to mix it up is to add thirds in there instead of the fifth. So this is where you start thinking about the chord qualities. Oh, and by the way, sorry, I forgot to mention that as you work through that progression, C minor 7, F7, B flat major 7, E flat major 7, they are all normal perfect fifths. But when we get to the minor 7 flat 5, obviously, it's a flattened fifth. It's a diminished fifth. So instead, we don't play a perfect fifth there. That'd be A to E flat. So if you look at that pattern, you know, it's got a bit of metal about it. Okay? And then back to D7, normal fifth. So all of them are perfect fifths, the normal fifth pattern, apart from the A minor 7 flat 5. But you can see that because it actually says it in the chord symbol, flat 5, right? The same would be there, would go for if you saw a diminished chord. If you see a diminished chord, it's going to be a flat 5. If you see an augmented chord or something that says sharp 5, you got to play a sharpened fifth, okay? So, next up, we start looking at the actual thirds in there. So, C minor 7, what kind of third is it going to be in there? This is where knowing your arpeggios comes in handy. So, for a C minor 7, okay, we've got a minor third in there. For the F7, if you know a dominant 7 chord, you'll know that that's a major third in there. B flat major 7, we've got a major third. E flat major 7, obviously a major third. So you just need to know what type of third it is in those, and you've got to know your third pattern. Now, just very quickly, if I'm on a C, right, it would be handy to know a major third and a minor third pattern, both on 2 strings and 1 string. That will get you out of jail very quickly when you're stuck in a position. So, if I look at a C major, so C, 3rd fret of the A string, and then if I look at a major third, it's going to be the E there, 2nd fret of the D string. So you get that in a major chord, okay? So there's your major third pattern. So it's dead simple. Just look at that. You've got that third finger and then that second finger and first finger there. Dead simple pattern. That's your major third, okay? A minor third, you just take that top note down a fret, So that'd be C to E flat. So get used to the major third and the minor third. Then you want to learn them both on the same string. So you've got C to E, so 3rd fret to 7th fret on the A string, and then C to E flat, 3rd fret to 6th fret. There's your major third, there's your minor third. That way you've got 2 choices for each of those thirds, okay? So you could play there, same notes, that E there, but knowing it on 1 string and on 2 strings. I can't stress enough how useful that can be, okay? So, what we can do then is, instead of just playing all root 5th, we can actually start putting thirds in there. So, so C minor 7, C, there's that minor third, F7, we want a major third, and then, well, there's the B flat. We can actually come down to the major third. Don't worry about it too much at the moment. We'll just come down a 5th. And then E flat, I could play the major third, then A. If I was down at that A, we've got the minor third, D, major third, G. Now, I won't linger on this too long, but that's the next thing to practice. Get used to putting thirds in instead of fifths, just on a 2-feel. The good thing about a 2-feel is you've got plenty of time to think. You know, you can just sit there 1, 2, 3, 4, and think it. You know, in that gap between 1 and 3, you can look at it and think, okay, well, I've got the C, now I'll play the third. Figure out where your third is and play it. And then between the, you know, beat 3 and the next bar, you can be looking at the next chord and thinking, okay, well, we're moving to an F. Eventually, you won't even be thinking. You know, you'll know the chord progression anyway, and you'll just get used to seeing certain chord movements, just chord changes. Like even if I didn't know this tune, right? If it was a tune I'd never seen before, I wouldn't be looking at individual bars. I'd be looking at maybe 4 bars at a time. So I'd see that and think, okay, C minor 7, F7, B flat major 7, E flat major 7. I would literally on the fly see it as a 2-5-1-4 in B flat major. That's what you want to aim for, to be able to see the whole landscape all in one go. Right? There's no working it out. You can just see it because you'll know the key. It's like if you know C major really well, and you know chords 1, 4, and 5 are C major, F major, and G major, you know, if you know that already, you'd know it if you saw it on a piece of paper. Well, it's the same for this. You just get used to certain keys and certain chord changes, right? So, and also seeing minor 7 flat 5 to, you know, like A minor 7 flat 5, D7 to G minor, knowing that's a 2-5 in a minor key. So, I'll just play through it again, and this time I'm going to put some thirds in. I won't put thirds on every single one, I'll just put it here and there. And the upside to thirds is that, let's say we're moving from C minor 7 to F7, I can play C, and then the E flat, and that leads nicely up to the F. Okay, so it's an alternative. Instead of root 5th, okay, and you'll hear how it sounds. There's the third. There's the third. I'll play a 5th. Third. Third. Some nice voice leading when you use thirds. Third, G. Now, as I'm playing this, I'll start putting in a few little skips and things. Okay, so what I did there, just for that little, it's not a skip, but it's just a little chromatic passing note, is that let's say that I'm playing from C minor 7 to F7, right? If I play root 5th, I can just fill in on beat 4 I'm just filling in the gap. You know, I've got the 5th leading down to there, so I've got C, G, the next note is going to be F, so I just put in the G flat. So, okay? So it's just a little chromatic passing note, and it just gives you a bit of jazzy spice in there. Same thing if I'm coming up from the third. Okay? And this is getting us towards the walking bass line kind of stuff, because we're gradually filling in the beats. So now I could also put a little skip in there by going root, fifth, root, flat 5. So I'm just putting notes in on that beat 4. Okay, so I'll put them in again. Or I'll play through it again. Here we're getting closer to that walking feel. Okay. So one other thing that you could do is actually, instead of doing that little chromatic thing, is you could actually just play root, fifth, third, and actually use both. So we've used third and fifth in isolation. Now we can actually put fifth, third, or third, fifth on beats 3 and 4. So root, third, fifth. So we're playing the arpeggio, really, the triad. So C, third, fifth, root, third, fifth, root, third, fifth, root, third, fifth, root, etc. Or fifth, third, root. Either way. Root, third, fifth, or root, fifth, third, okay? So, fifth, third, root, third, fifth, root, fifth, third, root, whichever way round. Like I say, it's improvised, so you just pick which one you want. I mean, just do them randomly to begin with, just to get used to them, and then as you do that, you'll start to know what they sound like. It'll become part of your vocabulary. So you'll think, oh yeah, well I want you're not consciously going to be thinking that, are you? You're not going to be thinking, okay, I need a fifth, third root, and then a root, third, fifth. You're not going to be thinking like that, but it'll become more instinctive. So, and some of them just fall under your fingers a little bit easier as well. So, I'll just try that. Fifth, third, root, third, fifth, root, third, fifth, root. Because the root movement is so, perfect movement by perfect fifth, it always works on this tune. We've gone from actually just playing roots to having quite a few notes in there. And the chromatics. Okay, so we're getting there. Now, that's something that what I've shown you there, just using that 2 feel, is probably quite a few. If you've never done anything like this, you've maybe got a few months of practice in there. You don't want to just practice that and think, oh yeah, now I can move on to anything. With students that I've had in the past, we might have gone through that on a few jazz standards. for months, until they can do it. The key to this is being able to improvise, is being able to make those decisions. I mean, like I said, when you're improvising, you're making decisions, right? So on a very basic level, you're going to be thinking going up or down. That's a very, very simple decision to make. But, it carries a lot of baggage with it, whether you go up or down, because you've got to think of your fingering, you've got to think of your positioning. It's just the very thought of I'm going to go up, or maybe keep going up, or coming down, or maybe coming down. If you're thinking of the general arc like that, that's a good foundation to work from. You can work out all the little bits that make that up, whether you have to use scales to go up, or, chromatics, or whatever it is, arpeggios, whatever material that you're using to go up or down. Really, at the heart of it is your decision to go up or down, right? So if I'm thinking, okay, well, I'm on C minor 7, and I'm thinking of a standard walking line, I might think, okay, well, I'm going to go up. And then I'm up to the F7, and I might think, I'm going to keep going up. And then I'm up to, let's say... And then I'm on the B flat major, and then I might think, okay, I'm on the E flat, I'll keep going up. Do I keep going up? And then I'm on the D, and then I think, I've gone a bit too high, I better come down. Oops. And then I'll start working my way down. But at the heart of that, is the arc, isn't it? It's the whether I'm going up or down. However, how I choose to do that is going to be determined by kind of how I feel at the time, what's working, maybe where I am. I might feel more comfortable with a certain line. But they're all the little micro decisions. But at the heart of it is just up or down. And this practice, just with root fifth, gets you used to making those decisions on a very basic level with limited material. So let's say C minor, I think up. Then F, up. B flat, I'm thinking, I don't really want to jump up here, down. And then E flat, down, and I'm down. And then up again. And we're just moving up and down like that. So I know that I'm stressing the point, but that really is at the heart of what we're doing here. So, next up, let's move a little bit further on. So you want to practice doing that for, a fair while. But eventually, once you make that jump and that leap into playing a note on every single beat, you really need a few little licks, like I mentioned earlier. Now, when you're playing through something like this, like I said, C minor 7 to F7 is root movement by fourth. You get a lot of it, and it's very, very common just because of the way that harmony works. I won't bore you with that, but that's, that kind of perfect cadence kind of and cyclic movement is very common in all styles of music. So if you've got C minor 7 to F, think about where that's going. Think about the root movement. C to F. That's a perfect fourth. Just the root movement. Ignore the arpeggios and stuff. Just look at the root. C to F. Same fret. That's a fourth. Okay? F to B flat. Again, that's a fourth. Now, let's say that I had the B flat down here. B flat up to E flat. Again, it's a fourth. E flat to A. Well, it's kind of like a fourth. Hold on. It's the end of the cold. So, and then A up to D. Again, it's a fourth. D to G. It's a fourth. We've got so much of that root fourth movement. It's actually 5-1 movement. So, we've got some lines that can work over that movement. So the most common one, and the one that you can use over both minor and major chords, is this. If I play C, D, E flat, E up to the F, it's just a little chromatic run up. So we've got C, third fret of the A string, then I'm just playing the open D, E flat, E. So open string, first fret, second fret, D string, and then up to the F. Okay? Dead simple. It's the kind of thing that you get for a finger exercise. And what we've actually got in terms of the intervals there is C, the root notes, then the second, then we've got the minor third and the major third. Now, because there's the minor third and the major third, even though that's actually just a chromatic leading tone up to leading, the phrase is just leading up to the F, but it'll work over both the minor and the major. So that's great. So we can use it for the C minor to the F, Then take that same line and move it up to the B flat. Now, once I'm up to the B flat, we need a line that's going to come down, because I mean, I could use that line to go up to the E flat, but I want to stay in this area. So I'm at the B flat, and then I think, okay, well, what am I going to do? I know I'll come down a scale, because if I come down B flat, A, G, F, I land perfectly on the E flat. 1, 2, 1, 7, 6, 5, because we're moving to that 4. So when you're going up, you can use that little chromatic run, and when you come down, you use a scale. Now, this is where knowing your scales comes in handy. So for the B flat major, I'm coming down a B flat major scale. For the E flat major, I'll come down the E flat. Well, I'm coming down an E flat Lydian, but you know, don't worry about that too much. Just think of the chord tone and put a sixth in there. So, okay. Then once I'm at the A minor 7 flat 5, I've got to change it a little bit, because we've got a bit of an oddity there. Now, the one that works over the, we're gonna work from the A up to the D, okay? Now, instead of that line that we used, we're gonna have to use the minor second in there just to make it fit with the key. So we've got an alternative line. So I've got A, B flat, C, C sharp, D. So A, 5th fret of the E string, B flat, 1st fret of the A string, and then C, C sharp, so 3rd fret, 4th fret, leading up to the D. A, B flat, C, C sharp, D. Okay? And that works over a minor 7 flat 5. So again, we've got a little lick that we can use over a minor 7 flat 5. And that's what we're looking at. We're looking at a bunch of licks that we can use over chords. But they're not like licks like birdie, birdie, birdie. They're not like guitar licks. They're just licks in a walking style, right? So far, I've got down the scale, up. Now we're on the D, we're working up to the G. Remember, we've got a journey from D to the G. It's up and forth again, so I can use our good old, that little chromatic line that I used earlier on the C and the F. Now, once we get to the G, again, I'll come down. So what am I going to do? I'll come down the arpeggio. So if you know a G minor, that's fine. And then I can, because we've now got G to the C, I can use the good old chromatic run up. So I'm using 3 different lines here, pretty much. I'm using C, I'm using that line. Then when I'm coming down a scale. And then on the minor 7 flat 5, I've got a variation on it. And then when I've got 2 bars, I'm just coming down the arpeggio and then fitting that little chromatic line on again. So I'm just using the same material. And that, believe it or not, will get us through the whole thing, because we can just keep repeating those lines. Now, before I play through this, here's the little bit of practice that I would recommend. Work out a line. Write a line. If you can't write a line, then you're going to find it impossible to improvise a line. Do you know what I mean? I mean, people always try to go for improvising first. But if you can't actually work one out, you know, and just actually write it, I don't mean write it in pen. I mean, just work one out. If you can't do that, how in hell are you going to actually be able to improvise one? You know, you've got to be able to write before you can improvise. So I would recommend taking a chord progression like that and working out a line that just goes through the head once. And then you can just go round and round it. And it's amazing how when you do that, you'll just start to see those lines. You'll start to see the journey that it's taking. And you'll know what's going on. And you'll start to absorb a lot of those little, you know, lines that are in there. It'll all go into your vocabulary. So I'm just going to use those lines that I just made up then to get through that entire chord progression. Now, bear in mind, when we get to the G, F sharp, F, E, I'm just going to play those root notes twice. G, G, F sharp, F sharp, F, F, E, E, and that'll get us through. Then once I'm to the E flat major, again, I'll come down the scale. And then we've got the A minor 7 to D, A minor 7 to D, I'll just play the root notes twice again. Okay, so here's what it sounds like. And then I'll play it fast. down the scale now. Up the chromatic one. Down the arpeggio. Up the good old chromatic. Same as before. Same line we played earlier. Because it's just a repeat. Down the arpeggio. And now obviously there's a bit different here. Same again. Down the arpeggio. See, it's the same lines. Sorry about the tone of this bass. Now. So, that got us through. Because there's so much repetition in there, we've got C minor 7 to the F7, got that same old line. F up to the B flat, same stuff. Once you've got a few lines working, you will be amazed at how much, what's the word? How much you can use them on loads and loads of different standards. You know, because as you start to see how, oh, if I go from C to F, you know, C minor 7 to F7, or anything when it's a 2-5, you know, C minor 7 to F7. That's why when you're playing jazz, it's so important to get used to 2-5 progressions, because they are all over the place. You get them in everything. Or getting that 1-6-2-5, you know, that kind of progression. You get them all the time. So you get used to playing over the same old stuff. So now I'll just play that exact same line, but I'll play it faster. So I'll do it 200 beats. Same old stuff. Improvising it now. So you get the idea. I was supposed to be playing the same thing around there, and it kind of just went off. But you get the idea. It's just the same old lines that are going in there. Now, I know that doesn't mean that, Mark's showed me how to do those lines. I'll now be able to play any jazz standard. Like, that's it. I've learned how to play walking bass lines. Obviously, that's like 3 lines that I've just showed you that kind of gets you through. But beyond that, you can start adding more stuff into your repertoire. So instead of just thinking of, you know, that line working up from the C up to the F, you might think of maybe that. Or you might go, or, you know, and you start adding all of these little moves into there. I mean, I was just messing around at the end, but it was, certain lines you'll start to like, and some of them you might not like. And you just get used to it by doing it over and over again. You just get, you know, certain lines stick and some don't. So, so that's a lot of stuff. Hopefully that'll help a little bit. Now, but like I said, the main thing to do is write a line. Just get a line, you know, using these basic building blocks. Just write a line that gets you through the whole thing. And then you can rely on that for a bit and then just start changing it up bit by bit. So you start thinking, okay, instead of that line there, I'll use this one. And then try a different one. Like I say, when I first did this, it was when I did it all on the in a band. I never sat there practicing walking bass lines outside of that. I was thrust into a band situation, and I just had to learn on the fly. And that was the best way to learn, because you very quickly figured out what worked and what didn't. And, just by people turning around and going, what the hell? And so, some stuff, I'd just hang on for dear life onto the stuff that I knew worked, and then just gradually, that kind of sounds all right. And that's, we're talking 25 years ago or whatever. It's like, as time went on, I started to add more stuff in there. And I'm not a jazz, master by any stretch of the imagination, but it's, I can get by, stuff like that. So, right, let me get this Autumn Leaves off the screen, move me back into place, and I'll have a look at what was been written. I haven't looked at the comments at all since I've started talking, because it had just thrown me off. But just in case there's anybody trolling me there and telling me how ugly I am. Let's have a look. So, there's a lot of comments here. What time is it? So I've got about half an hour left. So first of all, because there's probably less of them, I'll just quickly look at the Facebook one just to see what we've got. We've got the hellos there. Exciting course, cool. And by hearing a lot of what you do, I've been able to improve greatly. Cheers, thanks, Vanessa. Is John still there? That's one of my old students. I've actually been through all this with him in person. Hi, Damon, if you're still there. Yep, E flat to A natural is tritone. That is true. Well, it's actually a sharp 4, which is a tritone, but some people will think that's a diminished fifth, and it is actually. It's just that it's because of the way the key works, because it's in a minor, it is still moving up by fourth, but it just so happens it's an augmented fourth as it does it. Because in every key, you don't always... you learn this when you're looking through modes. You don't always have perfect fourths through things, which is why when you're playing... Let's say I'm playing A Dorian or something. I might be able to get, fourths there. I'll get fourths on the second, but then we've got that. I've actually got an augmented fourth and then a perfect fourth, which is why when you're playing quarterly, you can't just play perfect fourths all the time. You can't just play parallel. Cool. Okay, so now I'll move on to the YouTube chat, of which there's a ton of stuff. It's always YouTube where all the trolls end up. We're in YouTube, the dumping ground. Cool, right. There's a lot of these I've got to get down through. What's the difference between a mode and a scale? Nothing. A mode is a type of scale. It's just that a mode is constructed from another scale. So if you've got something like C major, for instance, the modes of C major are constructed from C major. So C major is the notes C, D, E, F, G, A, B, right? So if you want the second mode of that, you just start it from the second note. So the second, so D. So using the same set of notes, D, E, F, G, A, B, C, D. And then the third mode would be E, F, G, A, B, C, D, E, right? D, E, F, G, A, B, C, D is not D major. You need an F sharp and a C sharp in there for it to be a D major. So yeah, that's so they are the same thing, really. Your teaching is so math, really? I didn't think it was. Yep. Sorry about me standing here and going, or sitting here and going, yep, I am reading through them and just trying to find all the stuff that I can expand on. The use of modes on this one could well be worth learning. Well, yeah, because when people learn modes, as much as I'm not a big advocate of modes, to be honest, but they do serve a purpose at times, especially in things like jazz, where or looking at harmony, chords within a key. The modes match up with them. They don't always, because if you've got, there aren't many chord progressions out there that actually are diatonic, that just stick as 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You're always going to have like secondary dominant chords, or you might get tritones. Not even in jazz. You're going to start having things that are, using parallel minors, or possibly a bit of modal interchange, stuff like that. And I know that sounds like, crazy talk, but it's amazing how even very, very basic chord progressions can actually, they're not just using a major scale. So, but learning the scales that do work with certain chords, when you start learning how to do walking bass lines, that's one of the main applications. People often say, "Oh, why do I need to learn all this stuff?" Well, for a lot of things, you don't. But if you don't have to learn all this stuff, obviously. But if you want to try learning how to play jazz or to play walking bass lines or anything like that, it's handy. It's useful for that. Or it's good practice for that. Learning walking bass lines is great practice. So if you're on the second chord of the scale, Dorian, and we wanted the root fifth of that chord, then we would use the second and sixth of the original scale. Yeah, but don't start thinking of it in that way. It gets too complicated. All you need to do is you think, so if you're in C and you're on chord 2, which is D, just think of that D and A. Just think root fifth. Think of it relative to the actual root note. The root note that you're on is the most important thing, because that's the tonality that is occurring at that point. Don't think about the overall key, because it's subject to change. Even in Autumn Leaves, it looks like B flat major for the first 4 bars, but then we have this chord 4 as a kind of pivot chord that then works into G minor, even though G minor is still the relative minor, and you could analyze it as all G minor, but that's B flat major. E flat kind of drifts us into G minor. Okay, so I would be thinking C minor. I'm not thinking B flat major at that point. I'm thinking C minor. And then F7. I will be thinking F. F, the root at that point. I'm not thinking B flat, Ba-ba-da-ba-da. Where can we get the Autumn Leaves backing track from? Well, I just made it earlier, so I'll put it up somewhere on talkingbass.net. I should have thought about that in advance. So I'll tell you what I'll do. I'll make a page up for it so that you've got a bit of a freebie, so that you can have the track, and I'll put the chord chart up there, and then I'll put it in the comments below after I've finished. Mark has the patience of Job. Do you think? I haven't really. Is practicing walking licks over 2-5-1 in all 12 keys more helpful than just working on a few standards? Well, working on standards is you are doing that in. Well, I would say you need to do both. Practicing the standards, you're applying it. You're getting more practice. It's getting dark in here, isn't it? The lights dimming. I would say do both. Practice. But when you take something like Autumn Leaves, just learn it in one key. Don't try because that's the first thing. People get advice from teachers and things to like, oh, don't just learn it in one key, learn it in all keys. And I'm like, no, don't do that. You'll just move on. You'll forget. Practice it in one key and learn it really well in one key, because once you've learned it really well in one key, then you can transpose it. But thinking, okay, well, we're going to play it in like B flat major or G minor or whatever, and then okay, well, now you're going to play it in B flat minor. that's more advanced. You want to learn the tune first, just in the key. It's like nobody's going to say to you, okay, well, let's learn Sunshine of Your Love. And you learn it, and then it's like, okay, right, that's enough of that. Now let's learn it in B. You know, it's like they're not going to do that. Just learn it in the one key first. Oh, looks like we've got a troll listening. Is it essential to keep the same note values for every note? Can I perhaps go down to eighth notes and then go back up with the scale, but using quarter notes? No, keep it simple to begin with, just because otherwise your job here is to actually keep the pulse. So you don't want to be, you know, you don't want any of that. It's just, you know, just stick with that. Don't put skips in. Don't put anything like that in. When I first went to when I was starting my degree, I'd already learned how to play walking bass lines, and the first thing that my bass teacher said when I first went for my first lesson, he got me playing through a standard, and he said, you need to play more simple. You're putting in too many skips. I was like putting in loads and loads of ghost notes and things. So like, you know, loads of those little, you know, little pull-offs in there and stuff. I was putting too many of them in, and you don't need them. It just kind of breaks it up too much. It sounds okay when you're playing solo with it, when you're just playing, you know, by yourself. But when you're playing with a band, you don't really need to be putting any of those in at all. Like I say, just keep it just simple. Yeah, that keeps the feel better. How do you use the pentatonic scale to create a walking line? You don't. I wouldn't say that pentatonics are that useful. Well, I mean, they're okay. I would think in terms of chord tones first and foremost, and then kind of full-blown scales, as in 2, 4, and second, fourth, and sixth in there, and then the chromatics added in there. So when I did that, the first line I showed you, that was, you know, a chromatic line. You know, it's a scale with an added note in there. So I wouldn't really. You can use pentatonic scales. I mean, you could. But it just. I mean, if you were playing in rock and roll stuff, you know, there's that standard line, which you I suppose you could say is kind of like a walking line, and that is a C. Well, it's kind of a C pentatonic, C major pentatonic, just missing the second. But you don't really need to think about pentatonics too much with it. They're more useful in soloing. Do you use any pedal when playing to make that crispy sound? No, I've got nothing going on at the moment. And to be honest, it'll be interesting to hear this afterwards because I've got the headphones on and it just sounds... I hate that headphone sound, you know, that direct sound. But generally, when I listen back to it, it doesn't sound too bad. But I'm trying to play lighter so I don't get any clank because you get all that, you know, that mess while I'm playing. So, no, there's no pedals at the moment. I did have, earlier on, I had the well, it's a bit of delay. That was the delay. So that's the YouTube comments. So I'll just quickly finish off with the last Facebook ones, and then I'll leave it there. Math is a good thing. Why is everybody mentioning math? I haven't been talking math at all. So I can get by modes. I work those by learning the shapes of them. So my problem is knowing arpeggios. Easy in shapes for modes. Walking by using connecting them a lot by first, third, fifth, sixth, octave. Yeah, I mean, just go through this live stream again, and just each bit that I mentioned, spend some time practicing in isolation. You don't want to just try the whole thing because it'll just blow your mind and you'll just stop, right? So you want to play very, very... Look how dark it's getting in here. You just want to try individual parts, just playing the root fifths for a start, and learn your chord tones. You know, I talk about these all the time in the videos, and I've got the chord tone essentials course, obviously. So if you want to learn about chord tones, there's my course there at talkingbass.net, chord tone essentials, and that really I cover everything, you know, about chord tones. But then maybe your scales, a few modes, put those in there. I've got a couple of lessons on YouTube, YouTube devoted to modes, and yeah. Let's hear some licks. You play a skip occasionally, it makes my ear hungry for the next one. Yeah, that, like I said, they sound better when you're actually playing away from the track. Or the you know, the band, whatever. It's actually not dark, it just looks dark on the camera because the light's going outside. It's and the, you know, the camera's, obviously the sensor's not that good on webcams. I missed the beginning. Can I watch when you're done? Yeah, as soon as I finish this, you'll be able to watch it on YouTube or Facebook. For all of you on Facebook, this is on the YouTube channel as well. I'm streaming it on both. So we've got it on Facebook and on YouTube. Cool. So that looks like it. So a lot of information there. So go back over all of that. You could even try out that little... What was it? Forgotten the lick. Oh, damn. Oh, hold on. I put it on there, didn't I? Where is it? Looper. Yeah, I have to remember that. I might write something for it. Oop. Wrong key. Good start. Etc. So that was in there earlier on. I'll have to remember that. Suits this lighting. That's all right, isn't it? Cool. Okay, then. So I will. I'll get going before everything just goes black, and I'll be back again next week. So remember that, like I said, I've got the good old sight reading course coming up. So that's going to be coming up very shortly. If you want to learn any of that other stuff, you know, all the stuff that I've just talked about, all that stuff to do with the walking lines, all the chord tones. Check out the Chord Tone Essentials course because it's all in there. If you worked through that Chord Tone Essentials thing, all of this will seem pretty easy. You know you'll know your way around the fretboard. You'll know all the arpeggios and everything all over. You'll know all about the chromatics. You'll know all about this, how to put the scales around them. The whole bit. It's a very, very big course. And you know, if you found any of that a little bit confusing, you know, like with all the chromatic bits or just the arpeggios, then check that out, and that should help you out. Cool. All right, then, everybody. So, yes, I will be back next week, and it's been great to see you all, and I'll see you later.